My name is Nora Voss, and I was 34 when I learned that 9 years of building something could be erased from a menu before the ink was dry. Not with a shout, not with a slammed door, with a manila envelope, a postage stamp, and a filing date that had already passed while they were still deciding what to wear. I want to be clear about what this story is. It is not a revenge fantasy. There are no poison pastries, no burned loaves lit for spectacle, no cinematic monologue delivered through tears. It is the sound of a machine stopping because one person stopped oiling it. The machine in this case was a family. My family. Not he. Was so neighbor. Listen you. They ran a commercial bakery, Golden Grain, supplying restaurants and hotels with artisan breads and laminated doughs, held in an LLC that bore my brother's name like a vanity plate on a car he had not paid for. For 9 years, I had been the one who developed the recipes, managed the Hackseat blogs, trained the bakers, and balanced the production schedules. My brother Adrian held the title of proprietor. I held a certified food protection manager credential I had earned 7 years earlier, a certification his name could not legally carry because he had never sat for the exam. They knew this. They had known it for years. What they did not know was that I had already filed a change of designated manager with the County Health Bureau. The form was dated February 14. The compliance audit was scheduled for March 15, and on March 12 my family invited a buyer to tour the facility over brunch, hoping to sell a $12,000 monthly contract they had not earned without me. I was invited too. They thought I was coming to arrange the croissants. Visual: a county fair tent, a blue ribbon, a boy's new bicycle. I was 12 the first time I understood that my hands were useful to them in a way my voice was not. The summer I turned 12, the county fair held its first junior baking competition, and my parents entered Adrian, who was 14 and had never measured a cup of flour without complaining, because they said the fair was good for the bakery's profile. I spent 3 nights in our kitchen after closing, perfecting a sourdough bowl with a crust that sang when you tapped it, and a crumb that held the light like honeycomb. Adrian watched a basketball game while the dough bulk fermented. On the day of the judging, I carried the bread to the fairgrounds in a linen-lined basket, still warm, the smell of it filling my mother's car. My mother patted my knee and said I was her little helper, that she didn't know what they would do without me. At the judging tent, the organizer asked who had baked the entry. My father stepped forward and said Adrian had developed the concept, that he was learning the family business, that his son had a real head for craft. Adrian stood beside him in a clean apron, smiling at the judges while I was sent to the back to organize the display table. The bread won a $200 blue ribbon. Adrian accepted it with a speech about tradition and passion that he had rehearsed in the car. That night, the $200 bought Adrian a new bicycle, a red 10-speed with curved handlebars. I received a $10 bill and a pat on the head. I did not cry in front of them. I cried in the walk-in cooler surrounded by sheet pans because my mother had said, "Nora's always been happier behind the scenes. Why would we change that?" She said it while stirring her coffee, not looking up, the way you note that the dishwasher is running or that the mail has come. I was useful. I was not worth a ribbon. Visual: a kitchen table, a shoebox of receipts, a calculator on waves. I was 16 when I found the $3,800 deduction. My father had bought a second proofing cabinet that winter, a commercial unit with humidity control, and he was drowning in receipts he had shoved into a shoebox labeled taxes in black marker. The box sat on the kitchen table for 3 weeks. I organized them alphabetically, then chronologically, then found the accelerated depreciation schedule he had forgotten to file for the new equipment and the energy rebate from the January utility audit. $3,800. That was the exact difference between my father owing the IRS $1,400 and getting a refund of $2,400 that spring. He clapped me on the shoulder at dinner and told my mother I had a real head for business, that I was a natural. I asked if I could be added to the business checking account so I could pay the ingredient invoices directly instead of waiting 3 days for him to find his checkbook and sign every bill. My mother reached across the table and patted my hand. Nora's always been happier behind the scenes, she said. Adrian needs to learn the financial side for college applications. Why would we change that? I looked at my father. He was already talking to Adrian about his batting average. The $3,800 saved the bakery that year. It paid for Adrian's summer baseball camp. My name did not appear on a single document, not the LLC filing, not the bank account, not the equipment lease. I was useful. I was not worth a signature. Visual. A culinary diploma. A plane ticket to Chicago. A crossed-out date. I graduated from culinary school at 24 with a degree in baking and pastry, and an offer to stage at a restaurant in Chicago. A place with 2 Michelin stars and a bread program that people wrote articles about. The same week, my mother had a bad turn with her blood pressure. Nothing catastrophic, the doctor said, but she needed to reduce stress and avoid early mornings and heavy lifting. My father called me into the kitchen the Sunday after her release and said the bakery needed a production manager, just for now, just until my mother was back on her feet and feeling like herself again. Adrian was 26, working at a marketing firm across town, building his personal brand, as my mother put it, her voice lifting on the word brand like it was a fragile thing that needed protection. He was too busy. I was not too busy. I was available. That was the word she used. Available. As if I were a conference room. As if I had no edges. I moved back into my childhood bedroom, the one with the faded wallpaper and the desk that still had my high school graduation program in the drawer. I took the early shift at the bakery and handled the books at night, sitting on the edge of my bed with a laptop that overheated and a phone that rang until 11. I developed recipes. I scaled formulas. I fixed the dough sheeter at midnight with a YouTube video and a wrench I bought myself because the maintenance budget my father set was imaginary. For 9 years, this was the rhythm. 9 years. I want you to hold that number. 3,285 days, more or less, of being the one who answered the phone when a delivery driver was lost at 4 in the morning, who drove to the bakery in ice storms to check the proofing boxes because my father couldn't lift the bags of flour, who learned the county health codes by heart because no one else would read them. The personal cost was not the labor. The labor I could do in my sleep. By year 4, the cost was the life I did not build while I was oiling the machine. At 26, I had saved $4,000 and found a studio apartment, 6 blocks from a bakery where I had been offered a head pastry position. I gave notice at home. I packed 2 suitcases. My mother cried. Not hard, just enough to make the air feel heavy and wet, the way it feels before a summer storm. She said my father still wasn't strong enough to handle the early shifts, that Adrian was up for a promotion and couldn't be distracted, that the clients only renewed because they trusted me, that I was the only one who knew the hexpat password and the repairman's name and the inspector's schedule. She did not say please. Stay. She said, Nora's always been happier behind the scenes. I unpacked my suitcases. The studio went to a line cook named Gabriella. I watched her carry plants into the building from the bus window. I stayed for 3 more years. At 29, I met Julian, a sous chef at a bistro downtown, who laughed at my jokes about gluten development. We dated for 12 months. He wanted me to move in with him after the holidays. I wanted to, but the January inventory was due, and the walk-in cooler had a temperature fluctuation that required daily check-ins, because my father had chosen the cheapest bit. My mother introduced Julian as Nora's friend from the restaurant, even after I corrected her twice. Julian asked me once, directly, why Adrian's name was on the ULC paperwork when I handled every crisis. I did not have an answer that sounded sane, outside my own head. I said I was helping the family. He looked at me for a long time. He left after 13 months. Not dramatically. No slammed doors. He just stopped asking me to choose him. I did not blame him. Oh, I had not chosen him. I had chosen the production schedules, the cooler repairs, the family that needed me to be available. For 9 years. Visual, a health department seminar, a stack of pamphlets, a notepad. The mechanism was born in a county health seminar I attended alone on a Tuesday night in January. I was 33. The county had passed a new food safety ordinance, effective January 1st, requiring every licensed commercial bakery to have a designated production manager who held a current certified food protection manager credential from the County Health Bureau. The certification required an accredited course, a proctored exam, and renewal every 5 years. Adrian had never taken it. He had never intended to. I had taken the exam in 2017. After a hotel client filed a complaint about a labeling issue, and I realized I needed legal standing to represent the bakery in any regulatory action. I passed on the first attempt. My certification number was CFBM 2017 8802. I was the only person in my family who could legally manage the bakery under the new ordinance. The county clerk explained that existing designations would expire on March 15th unless renewed with the certified manager's signature and a notarized affidavit of active management. I sat in the back row with a notepad and wrote down every deadline. Adrian sat at home watching a basketball game. My mother had asked me to go because, as she said, I was the one who understood that kind of thing. She did not ask what the ordinance meant. She assumed I would handle it. She was correct. But I understood something else that night. The ordinance created a paper trail. It required the county to keep a public record of the designated manager, and it allowed any certified manager to file a change of designation with 30 days' notice, provided they could demonstrate they had been performing the duty. I had 9 years of Hackseep logs, production schedules, and inspection reports with my handwriting on them. I had a lever. It was boring. It was legal. It was mine. Visual, a magazine cover, a man in a chef's coat, a rack of sourdough. The erasure did not happen all at once. It accrued like interest on a debt no one intended to pay. In January of my 34th year, a local magazine featured Adrian as the visionary force behind Golden Grain's artisanal renaissance. The photographer shot him in the production area, wearing a chef's coat with his name embroidered, holding a lame over a scored bull. The bull was my recipe. The scoring pattern was mine. The article quoted him at length about his philosophy of fermentation. Many. He spoke for 10 minutes without mentioning a single supplier, a single hydration percentage, or the fact that the deck oven had been broken for 3 weeks, and I had been finishing breads in a convection unit not meant for the task. My mother framed the article. My father sent the link to every relative. I was mentioned once in the final paragraph as the dedicated kitchen support that keeps production running. I read it while shaping broche, the butter still under my fingernails. By then, the form was already sitting in a file downtown, waiting. I just hadn't decided if I would use it. Visual. A bank lobby. A glass conference room. A business card. The second incident happened 2 weeks later. My mother asked me to accompany Adrian to the bank to help him organize the financials for the hotel contract review. She said it casually, while folding linen, as if she were asking me to pick up milk. I brought my laptop, my external drive, and a binder of records I had maintained for 9 years, every temperature log pressed flat, every production sheet annotated in the margins, with hydration adjustments and fermentation times. The loan officer, a woman named Denise with silver hair and a charcoal suit, asked Adrian about the food safety protocols. Adrian hesitated. He looked at me. I answered. I explained the HACS plan, the critical control points, the supplier verification program, and the corrective action logs for the last 3 inspections. Denise turned to me, genuinely impressed, and asked if I was the production manager. Adrian laughed. It was a sound I knew well, the laugh he used when he was uncomfortable and wanted to reclaim the room. He said I was his assistant, that I helped out with the routines, that he was the proprietor, but he liked to keep his sister busy. He said it like a joke between professionals. Denise did not laugh. She looked at me for 1 second longer, then was polite. I looked at the binder. I had color-coded the production histories by quarter. I had highlighted the $18,400 in personal funds I had advanced to cover ingredient shortfalls during the 6-month slump in 2022, the months Adrian had been in Napa. I had not listed those advances as loans. I had listed them as operational support in the ledger, language that made them sound voluntary. Adrian signed the disclosure forms with a pen I had brought from my apartment. My name appeared nowhere on the documents, not even as a witness. Denise handed him her business card. Why? She did not hand me one. No. Oh. I drove home in silence while Adrian talked about the motorcycle he might buy with his share of the hotel contract. A vintage BMW he had already picked out online. I stared at the road and thought about the county ordinance. I thought about my certification number, FPM 2017 80809. now. I thought about how easy it would be to file a single form with a notary public and a postage stamp. How easy and how permanent. Visual. A county clerk's office, a notary stamp pressing into paper. I filed the form on February 14th. I took a personal day from the bakery, the first one I had used in 11 months. I told no one. Not my mother, not Adrian, not the baker who covered my station. Oh. I drove to the county clerk's office with a folder of proof. 9 years of production logs with my signature as the contact party, repair invoices paid from my personal account, inspection reports prepared by my hand, and my certification card laminated in plastic. The clerk was a woman named Gloria with reading glasses on a chain and a cough that rattled in her chest. She reviewed the documents for 14 minutes without speaking. She said the change of designated manager would be processed within 5 business days, and the new certificate would be mailed to the address on file. I gave her my apartment address, not the family house on Maple Street. She did not ask why. She stamped the form with a sound like a door closing and handed me a carbon copy. I paid the $40 filing fee with my own debit card. I kept the receipt. Mail? Ivan. I had already mailed the form. No, yep, tao. It was sitting in a file downtown, waiting. Then I went to the post office and sent a certified letter to the hotel chain's procurement attorney, Patricia Vance, whose name I had found on the developer's website under vendor compliance. The letter was 1 page, single-spaced, with no greeting beyond the formal address. It stated that as of March 1st, the designated production manager of record for Golden Grain Bakery, LC, had changed pursuant to County Ordinance 22C. And that any contract, inspection, or transfer of management rights required my signature and physical presence by county law. I did not threaten. I did not plead. I did not explain my reasons. I stated facts in the flattest language I knew, the language of accountants and clerks. I kept the certified mail receipt with its tracking number. I kept the stamped copy of the filing. I kept the $40 receipt in an envelope labeled GDB, administrative. I went home and made a cup of tea and sat on my couch and waited for March 12th. The family did not know. They were planning the brunch menu. They were planning the contract. They were planning to hand me the napkins and ask me to check the pastry cream. Visual: a corporate boardroom, a silver coffee service, a pastry display. March 12th arrived cold and bright, a morning that felt like a promise no one asked for. My mother had rented the conference room at the hotel because she said it impressed buyers, gave them a sense of the professionalism they were buying into, quality that came from attention to detail. There were white tablecloths, and a silver coffee service and a platter of pastries from our bakery, the croissants I had laminated that morning at 4 a.m., the sourdough I had scored by hand. I arrived at 10:45, wearing a charcoal dress I had bought for a James Beard dinner 3 years ago, and never worn because my mother had called that morning to say my father was having a bad day, and could I please check the oven in the secondary kitchen. My mother kissed my cheek and told me to make sure the cream was fresh and to set up the sugar cubes, not the packets, because Jeffrey Holt was a man who noticed details. Adrian wore a chef's coat that cost more than my monthly rent, the coat he had bought with the marketing bonus from his firm after I had covered the insurance premium that January. My father stood by the window practicing his handshake in the glass reflection, his palm opening and closing like a fish gasping. The buyer arrived at 11 o'clock exactly. His name was Jeffrey Holt. He was 60, maybe 65, with a tan that looked expensive, and a watch that caught the light and held it like a threat. He brought his attorney, Patricia Vance, a black woman in a burgundy blazer, who carried a leather folio and did not smile when she shook Adrian's hand. She looked at me as she entered the room. I was standing by the coffee station. I nodded. "Yaon." She nodded back. It was a small movement, barely visible, but it held weight I could feel in my collarbone. My mother poured the coffee into china cup. I did not touch the pot. No. I did not move to help her. Adrian launched into his presentation, a slideshow on a laptop I had configured for him the night before. the slides I had designed with the production charts I had compiled from 9 years of data. He talked about cash flow. He talked about artisanal integrity. He talked about his hands-on management style and his personal relationships with the client. He had met 2 clients in 9 years. I had met all of them. My mother beamed at him like he was a photograph she had always wanted to frame. My father nodded along, his eyes watery with pride or wine. Patricia Vance took notes with a fountain pen that scratched against the paper. She asked one question while Adrian was mid-sentence about projected yields. Who holds the current food protection certification for the production facility? Adrian waved his hand as if brushing away a fly. I oversee all of that, he said. My sister helps with the paperwork, but I'm the proprietor on every document. Patricia Vance stopped writing. She looked at me again, her eyes level and calm. I was still holding my manila envelope. My fingers were not shaking. Visual. A china cup, a fountain pen resting on a legal pad. Adrian's answer hung in the air like smoke from a blown candle. Jeffrey Holt smiled, a smile that meant he was ready to move to numbers, to unit costs and delivery schedules, the part of the meeting where men like him felt most at home. My mother filled the silence before it could become awkward. Nora's always been happier behind the scenes, she said, turning to Jeffrey with a hostess's grace, as if she were explaining why the napkins matched the curtains, or why the flowers were white. She's been doing the day-to-day for, 9 years now? She laughed, a sound like silverware settling. We always say she's the engine, and Adrian is the steering wheel. My father chuckled into his coffee. Adrian straightened his coat and let the metaphor sit there, let it grow roots in the room. Jeffrey Holt looked at me with a new expression, the look of a man who has just been told where the bathroom is, a brief acknowledgement before returning to the important people. Patricia Vance did not look at me. She looked at Adrian with the flat patience of someone who has heard this particular lie before. Mr. Mahal, Jen, she said, her voice even and unhurried, are you stating that you personally hold the county food protection certification required under Ordinance 22C? Adrian's smile faltered for half a second, a crack in the glaze.
I hold the management title, he said. The certification is a formality.
My sister took the course, but I run the business. I make the decisions. My mother touched Jeffrey Holt's arm, a gesture of reassurance. She said it again, the exact words, delivered with the same casual cruelty as the day she had denied me the blue ribbon, the same dismissive music as the night she had kept me from the studio apartment. Nora's always been happier behind the scenes. Why would we change that? I felt them land in my sternum like a bookmark, placed in a chapter I had already read 100 times and was now ready to close. Patricia Vance closed her folio. The snap of leather was the only sound in the room for 2 full seconds. Jeffrey Holt looked at his attorney, confused, his smile dimming. My mother was still talking about my thoroughness, my reliability, my availability, the way I never took vacations, and answered my phone at midnight. She was selling my labor as a feature of the bakery, like a new deck oven or a renovated mixer or a reliable proofer. Adrian joined in, explaining that I would of course stay on through the transition, that I was part of the package, that the buyer would find me invaluable, that he had already factored my continued management into the contract projections. He said it without asking me. Me. He said it as if he were offering a tool that came with the building, a dough sheeter or a proofing cabinet. I set my envelope on the table. The sound was soft, paper against cloth. It was enough. Visual, a manila envelope, a hand sliding documents across mahogany. I need to correct the record, I said. My voice was level, even the same tone I used when telling a supplier that their late delivery would not be excused. I had practiced the sentence in my car on the drive over, speaking it to the steering wheel until it sounded like weather, like a forecast, like something that simply was. I opened the envelope. Mount. The flap made a clean, tearing sound. I slid the first document across the table to Patricia Vance. It was the certified copy of the change of designated form, filed February 14th and processed March 1st, bearing the clerk's stamp and my signature. This is the change of designated manager form, I said. Filed with the County Health Bureau on February 14th. The previous designation of Adrian Chen was terminated by Ordinance 22C, which requires the certified manager to be the designated manager of record. I slid the second document. It was my food protection certification, number CFPM, 2017, 8A92, current through next December, with my photograph laminated. This is my certification, I said. Number CFPM 2017, 8892. I passed the exam in 2017. My brother has never held this credential. I slid the third document, a spreadsheet printed on green paper. This is a ledger of operational contributions from my personal funds to Golden Grain Bakery, LLC, over the last 9 years, I said, totaling $18,400. None of these have been repaid. None were documented as loans in the LLC operating agreement. They were drawn from my personal savings to cover ingredient shortfalls, equipment repairs, and insurance premium delinquencies that occurred when the LLC account was empty. Adrian laughed. It was a high, nervous sound, the laugh of a child caught in a lie he thought was too small to matter. Nora, what is this? He said. Are you having some kind of episode? My mother looked at my father, her eyes wide and wet. My father looked at the documents as if they were written in a language he had never learned to read, his mouth slightly open, his hand hovering over his chest. I did not look at any of them. I looked at Patricia Vance. She was reading the filing with a concentration that excluded the rest of the room, her finger moving down the page line by line. She turned to Jeffrey Holt. Mr. Absalom. Holt, she said, her voice carrying the weight of her 15 years of practicing law, according to the Secretary of State filing and the County Health Bureau records, which I verified this morning. Ms. Voss has been the certified manager of record since March 1st. Mr. Chen has no active food protection certification on file. Under the purchase agreement's representation and warranties clause, this constitutes a material misrepresentation in the sale disclosures. The buyer is entitled to terminate due diligence immediately. Jeffrey Holt's face changed. The tan did not look expensive anymore. It looked like a mask that had slipped. Adrian, he said, is this true? You told me you ran this operation personally. Adrian stood up. His chair scraped the floor with a sound like a scream. She's my sister, he said, his voice rising. She works for me. This is a family misunderstanding. She's upset about the contract, that's all. She's emotional. Patricia Vance did not look up from the ledger. No. She turned a page. Ms. Voss, she said, did you file this change of designation independently, without coercion? I did, I said. Did you personally perform the management duties listed in the affidavit of active management? For 9 years, I said. Every recipe, every inspection, every hacks blog, every 3 a.m. delivery from a supplier who was short. My mother made a sound, not quite a word, more like air escaping a tire. My father's hand was shaking. He knocked over his coffee cup. The brown liquid spread across the white linen like a map of something breaking open. Adrian was shouting now, something about loyalty, about blood, about how I had embarrassed him in front of a client, how I had sabotaged the family. His voice was the only loud thing in the room, bouncing off the conference room walls. I did not raise mine. I did not stand. I reached into the envelope and pulled out the last document, a single sheet of plain paper. This is my resignation from all informal and formal management duties related to Golden Grain Bakery, LLC, I said. Effective immediately. I am terminating my access to the HEX software, the LLC supplier accounts, and the production log files. I am also notifying all clients that all future communications should be directed to the proprietor on file, as listed with the Secretary of State. I placed it on the table next to the spreading coffee stain. Jeffrey Holt stood up. He did not look at Adrian. He looked at me, and then at Patricia Vance, and then he picked up his own folio. I think we're done here, he said. My mother reached for my arm. I moved my chair back. Nora, she said. Nora, please. I looked at her. I looked at the coffee spreading across the table. I looked at Adrian, who was still standing, his face red, his hands open and empty. I picked up my empty envelope. I walked out of the room. No one followed me. Not then. I stopped. I was never happy behind the scenes. Visual. A laptop screen, a red login error message. I did not go home. I went to my apartment and changed into jeans and a sweatshirt and sat on my couch with a cup of tea that I let cool while I worked. Then I began the withdrawal. I changed the password on the HakeSheep software. The account was in my name, paid for with my personal credit card for the last 3 years because Adrian said the LLC couldn't afford the $90 monthly fee, and my father had agreed. I canceled the auto-renewal. I exported the production database to my personal external drive and deleted the master file from the shared cloud folder. I logged into the LLC supplier portal, which I had access for 9 years because I was the one who placed the orders and tracked the deliveries, and I removed my authorized user status through the online portal. The supplier sent an automatic notification to the primary account holder, my father, that a user had been removed and that pending orders might be affected. I did not answer my phone when it rang 30 minutes later, my mother's name bright on the screen. I let it ring until the voicemail picked up. I changed the outgoing message on the bakery line, the number I had carried in my pocket for 9 years, to a generic message directing all calls to Adrian's cell phone, which he never answered before noon. Then I stopped. I had not destroyed anything. I had not hidden information they could not legally obtain. I had simply stopped holding the door open with my shoulder. The machine began to break immediately, the way a clock stops when you stop winding it. Without the software, Adrian could not access the production logs to schedule the inspection Jeffrey Holt had demanded before signing, nor could he prove the safety protocols he had claimed. Without my signature on the insurance forms, the broker could not renew the liability policy, which was due in 19 days, and which I had prepared every quarter for 9 years. Without my personal funds covering the gap between the client payments and the ingredient bills, the March auto draft bounced for the first time in 4 years, triggering a late fee of $230 and a notice of default risk from the lender. I did not cause these things. I simply stopped preventing them. I stopped oiling the machine. Visual. A phone screen. 7 missed calls. A kitchen table at night with 1 lamp on. The fallout took 2 weeks to fully arrive, spreading like water, finding every crack in a floor. Jeffrey Holt terminated the letter of intent on March 14th, citing material misrepresentation and failure to disclose the true management structure. The hotel chain's attorney sent a formal notice to Adrian, copied to my father, outlining the discrepancies in the financial disclosures, the lack of certified management, and the $18,400 in undocumented liabilities. The bank, alerted by the bounced draft and the late fee, called the commercial loan due for review and required full financial audit before the next payment cycle. My father left me 4 voicemails, each one louder than the last. Adrian left 11, the first 3 demanding, the next 4 pleading, the last 4 consisting mostly of silence and breathing. My mother left 3 that started with "How could you do this to your father?" and ended with "We need to talk as a family." I listened to none of them past the first 30 seconds. I deleted them one by one while eating toast at my kitchen counter. The accountant, a man named Gene, who had prepared the family taxes for a decade and who had always emailed me directly because I was the one who provided the numbers, called me on March 20th. He was not angry. He was confused in a professional way, the way a surgeon might be confused if the patient walked out mid-operation. He said he could not file the LLC return without the production cost documentation, the ingredient receipts, and the depreciation schedules, which had always come from me in a green folder by the 15th of the month. I told him to contact Adrian. I told him Adrian was the proprietor. He paused. I could hear him clicking his pen. "Nora," he said, his voice dropping. "Adrian doesn't know the password to the accounting software. He doesn't even know which version we're running." "I know," I said. Visual. A health inspector's clipboard. A dairy cooler thermometer. The county health inspector called Adrian directly to schedule the compliance interview. He was legally required to attend as the proprietor of record before the March 15th deadline. Adrian did not know what a compliance interview entailed. He did not know the inspector's name was Roberto Santos. He did not know that the walk-in cooler had a failing compressor the baker had reported to me 2 months prior, which I had been managing with a personal space heater and twice daily temperature checks because my father had refused to pay the $800 repair, saying we could wait until spring. The inspector found the cooler at 48 degrees during his routine walkthrough. He issued a notice of violation and an order to discard all dairy inventory. The fine was $500. The repair estimate was $2,000, and the dairy supplier threatened to withhold credit until the violation was cleared. My father called me again, this time from the urgent care clinic. His blood pressure was 190/110. He said the stress was killing him, that I was killing him, that a daughter should not do this to her family. I told him to call Adrian. I told him Adrian was the proprietor. I told him Adrian would handle it. I was calm. I was unbothered. I was free. Visual. A smartphone. 3 gray text bubbles on a screen. The phone call slowed after a month, tapering like a tide going out and leaving things exposed on the sand. Then they changed. My mother called on a Tuesday in April and left a voicemail I did not return for 3 days. Not out of spite, but because I was busy learning how to live without the sound of her voice in my ear. She said my father was fine, the blood pressure was managed with medication, and that they had hired a food safety consultant to handle the bakery, because Adrian couldn't do it and work full-time at the marketing firm. She said the consultant fees were eating into the profits, that he charged $150 an hour, which was highway robbery. She said Adrian was struggling at the firm because of the stress from the contract falling through, that he had been passed over for the promotion he wanted. She did not apologize. She did not say she had been wrong. No. She said, "We miss you at dinner. Sunday isn't the same." I did not call back. I texted 2 days later, "I'm glad he's well. Take care." That was all. She did not text again. My father texted me in May. It was the first time he had texted me in 3 years, since he had sent me a picture of a sunrise that I had never asked for. The message was 3 sentences, written in the slow, punctuated style of a man who still treats texting like a telegram. I didn't know it was that bad. "I thought you were helping because you wanted to." I should have asked. I read it sitting on my porch in the evening, the concrete still warm from the day. I read it 3 times. It was not an apology. It was a flicker, a small light in a dark room, enough to see the outline of something broken, but not enough to mend it, not enough to make it whole. I did not reply that day. I let the words sit with me. I replied the next morning while my coffee brewed. "Thank you for saying that." He did not write back. I did not expect him to. Some doors once opened only show you the distance between where you are and where you used to be. Visual: a studio apartment, a bookshelf with 12 books, a yellow mug. I live in a 1-bedroom now, 8 blocks from the hotel where I work as a pastry chef, where I was promoted to sous chef in April because I could finally stay late without a delivery driver calling about a missing invoice. I have a fern on the windowsill that I water on Saturdays, and it has grown 3 new fronds since I bought it in April. I have a yellow mug that I bought with my first paycheck after the reckoning, the first thing I had ever purchased just because I liked the color, not because it was on sale or because someone else needed it. I wake up early without an alarm. I make coffee in the yellow mug. I read the newspaper at my small table, without checking my phone for delivery emergencies or LLC bank alerts. On Sundays, I go to the farmer's market 2 streets over and buy vegetables I have never cooked before, eggplant and fennel and strange mushrooms, and I burn them sometimes, and I eat them anyway because they are mine, and because no one is watching. I am learning to be alone without being lonely. It is slow. It is uneven. It is enough. My name is Nora. I am 34.